Hi guys, Joey with Kilo Inc. and Super Chef is finally accessible. Super Chef is finally playable. You can either play it on tabletop or print out your own cards. To play it on Tabletop Simulator, simply go to the workshop on Steam and in the search bar search for Super Chef Cook-Off, and there it should be the first thing that pops up. It has everything you need to play the game, including a fancy board. Unfortunately, the board was a little too big for the print and play side. Speaking of which, if you want to print your own cards out, you can go to the Google Drive link in the description or on my YouTube channel front page and print out your own cards there. Unfortunately, they're not as crisp as the Phytora cards were, simply due to how the cards themselves look. I'm sure they would turn out better if they were printed in color, something I will have to pay more attention towards in future games that I design. I will have a follow-up short talking about the quality a little bit. All the important information is readable, so it's still playable. I know it's taken me like a month to finish 3 redraws of cards, but I'm lazy, alright? Sue me. And yeah, otherwise Super Chef's completely done. Like, that's it. I'm completely, like, there's nothing else that I have to do, nothing that's still sitting there waiting to be finished or worked on or even touched or thought about, like, at all. Unrelated note, if you want to play the game, I actually have a rules video, which I'll link in the description. So, yeah, completely unrelated side note, make sure to check out that rules video so you know how to play the game. It's almost like people make rule books to help people learn how to play their game. Anyways, all joking aside, to make this video more than just a glorified announcement, I figured I'd take a look at some of the cards and how they've changed. We're not looking at every single card. Most cards have stayed the same, but a few of them have had major changes in ability or simply how they look. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at them. The next few Super Chef videos will be card overviews and probably a battle video hidden in there somewhere. So we're going to start with Breadsticks, the first card for Super Chef. It's not the most interesting card, but like I said, it is the first card and a nice place to start. So it's just a simple card. So I'm not really going to focus on the ability for this card. It's very simple, just lets you draw a card if you play it to a specific customer, which is very weak. That's why I remade it so that it increases your hand size when played to that customer. However, what I want to focus on is the quality. I'm not sure how well this will translate to YouTube, but it's very easy to see on tabletop at least. Now, if you can see, everything's a lot blurrier. Now this is due to the fact of how I made the card. The borders, the text, it's very detail heavy, which is why it doesn't translate that well through a printer, at least when printing in black and white. I'm not sure about color. But I fixed this problem for the newer cards. As you can see, it's a lot crisper, it's a lot clearer. It's easier to read. And all I did was I increased the resolution. In Photoshop, I went from a 100% to a 150%, and that worked really well. Everything's a lot clearer, it's easier to read the cards, you can see the details a lot better. The pictures themselves are still a little on the blurry end, but you know, when you're looking at them from a sky down perspective like this, you can't really notice it. Next up is the burger. Now the burger was interesting. If you notice, there's a lack of cheese and dairy products in Super Chef right now, and that's because I plan to have a dairy type in the future. Right now though, there is no dairy type, so having cheese or anything dairy related just wouldn't make sense. I would either have to add in the type later on, which I didn't want to do, or those cards simply wouldn't have them, and it's like its own separate thing, so I figured I would just wait on that. So that's why the burger started off as the hamburger. Now if you can't tell, this is an ugly monstrosity. This was back when I was just starting out with this art style, so I still wasn't very used to it, and I still wasn't very good at it. However, by the next iteration, it started getting a little better, and it changed from a hamburger to a grilled burger, because I wanted that split top bun, and calling it a grilled burger just sounded better. This still does not look good though. So, we move on to the next version, the next iteration. The bun's off, and then you can see the lettuce, onion, and pickles. I wanted to add tomatoes, but it just got a little too much visual wise, so I decided to skip them. And in fact, I got rid of the pickles later on too because they were cluttering things up and they were too hard to distinguish from the lettuce. Next up is the chicken strips. They started off just sitting on the floor. Eventually I gave them a napkin, but I didn't grab a screenshot of that one. And then finally I fixed them up and put them in a basket like they should have always been in. Premium Steak was the first big card added to Super Chef. It's a high statted card that comes with a big drawback, or at least that's how it should be. Originally it just lowered your other food cards by 2, which, was kind of annoying but wasn't that big of a problem. Also, for some reason, I didn't give it a plate. Weird. I fixed that mistake, and I fixed its ability. Now it lowers everything by 3. It used to lower things by 4, but that was way too ridiculous, so now it lowers everything by 3. I also gave it an alcohol discard ability. When I first gave it a discard ability, it was a negative drawback. You didn't want to discard Premium Steak, but that kind of goes against the antithesis of the alcohol cards. They like to be discarded. So I gave it a very good, super good, in fact, positive ability. So hopefully there's a little more thought that goes into playing Premium Steak than just, oh, well, I'm going to play a super big card and you can't do anything to stop me. French fries is an interesting card. It started off as classic cut fries and was very clearly just a McDonald's type ripoff thing. Eventually I changed it to steak fries and made it so that someone poured out their fries onto some napkins. And then some ketchup packets are sitting in the front. Ketchup packets aren't the best, but I accidentally merged all the layers, so I can't change it now. Some of the earlier cards, I merged the layers, unfortunately, so I can't go back and change the finer details, which does kind of suck, but stops me from meddling. Onion Rings is a fun card in my opinion. It's a card that when it gets discarded, you're allowed to bring it back to your hand. The first iteration wasn't very clear, where the second iteration I clarified that if it is sent to the waste pile during a round, so it could be sent from the field or from your hand or from the deck even. And then the third iteration I gave it a much needed buff and I changed the art a little bit to just make it look a lot nicer. I gave it some napkins so that extra half-eaten onion ring wasn't just sitting on the floor. Mashed potatoes was a tough card to make. The first iteration was okay, but it just did not look appetizing whatsoever. Its ability was also just kind of random. It started off by letting you lower its value to increase the value of another card, but it just wasn't useful or helpful. It just made more sense to have the high statted card of the mashed potato on the field. Why lower it to increase somewhere else? Just made more sense to play better cards. So I changed it to kind of hinder your opponent from discarding cards, which is very much needed because outside of mashed potatoes, I don't think there's any hindrance to, kind of stop or, make your opponent second guess whether they should discard or not. They just will if they want to. And mashed potato fills kind of a unique role now. Glaze Donut was the first real disruptive card. Originally, it sent a food on the table back to your opponent's hand. And that was okay. I mean, it really just prevented your opponent from playing an extra card next turn because they would replay that card. Sometimes it even helped your opponent. So I decided to buff it, and it would eventually send a card to your opponent's waste pile. That was too good because you could send an 8 value steak or an 8 value steak that has been buffed to like a 10 or 12 value simply by playing a 2. So I had to give it some restrictions. So now I can only send food cards with a base value of 5 or less to the waste pile. Still a very good card. Not as obnoxiously strong as it once was. Also, Devin actually caught it. For some reason, I could have sworn I did it, but I guess I didn't when I was first making it. I just forgot to add like the back end of the donut, so it ended up looking very weird, but Devin caught it and I was like, how did I miss that? And it was nice. It was a good catch. Good eye, Devin. I'm not going to go into detail on pineapple rings, but pineapple rings has been a broken card throughout the entire game's life. As soon as I made it, Devin always used it, and it was super broken. So pineapple rings' entire lifespan has been debuff, debuff, debuff. I think it's at a very usable state now, And it's just crazy how good Pineapple Ring was and for how long it was good. Baked chips, what a glow up. It started off as just like a bunch of shaved potatoes, and it looks so much better now. And it originally started off as a no ability card. Most food cards have abilities, but there's a few that don't, and a few cards that work around with that. Another card that was similar, so it just didn't make sense to play baked chips. So I gave an ability that let it search for other baked chips when played, and it gets stronger for every baked chip on the field. Pork ribs, another much needed glow up. When I first made the original pork ribs, I was in another rut, you could say. It was more so that I was just excited to get to some of the other card types because I was finally at the end of the food cards. So I kind of skimped on pork ribs. But the glow up was worth it. This was the card that I kind of was struggling with the past month or so. I just had no idea what I wanted to do for it. Mashed potatoes, I had a clear idea of what I wanted. It's just I knew it was going to take work, and it did. Whereas pork ribs, no idea what I wanted. Turns out it only took like 10 minutes to make, but it turned out so great. Strawberry ice cream. I can't believe I was originally happy with this. Starting off, the clear glow up, like it's just, oh my god. Strawberry ice cream, well, strawberry sundae, I should say, it's an amazing card. I love it so much. Not in terms of ability, it's pretty meh, but like just, it looks so good. It's a beautiful card. I love it to death. And then I gave it a much needed buff. It's definitely one of my favorites in terms of just, I'd eat one. Like, I don't even like strawberry sundaes, but I'd eat that. Now for the other card types, the specials and customers, they really haven't had major changes. The special cards have pretty much stayed the exact same outside of some minor buffs or nerfs, but one of the major nerfs is sharp knives. Originally, it just lowered the value of a card by 2, and that's really good. It was an auto include in every deck. Why wouldn't you put that in? So I had to debuff it a little bit, and now it also lowers one of your food cards by 1. Other than that, though, I still think it's a very good card. Very strong card. You know, I actually had a few more special cards that I thought I was going to show off, but actually looking and reading through them, they just weren't that interesting to show off. They just, again, minor changes. Special cards really haven't changed. And really, neither have the customers. Outside of some type, likes and dislike changes, the customers have pretty much stayed the same in terms of abilities. Little Kid here is very important, however, because it was the first customer card I made. And I wasn't entirely sure what to do for the art style for the customer cards. Unlike the food cards, which, I was just making food. The customers, it's not like I'm going to draw a human. So my first attempt was this little emoji style. And I didn't like it. It was awful. I hated it so much. I tried just the simplified icon style, and I loved it. It was great. It was perfect. Exactly what I wanted. So the last card we'll be going over today is the Daredevil. Now, don't mind the lack of a picture. All the customer cards were uploaded to tabletop so that I could play the game with Devin without having any actual art in the initial stages. There have been a few customer cards that have been swapped and replaced, but Daredevil is the only one that has truly changed. Originally, it was if both players played 3 food cards to Daredevil, it increased the dollar value by 3. Problem is, if you played 3 food cards, your opponent wouldn't play 3 food cards. And if your opponent played 3 food cards, you wouldn't play 3 food cards. So it didn't work. You were never getting 3 food cards played to Daredevil. Just didn't make sense. Even if you just didn't want to risk it, especially for a $2 value. So I eventually had to buff it, and I think it's in a much better place now. Now, it's if you play 2 food cards there, it increases its dollar value. And then if both players play 3 food cards there, it increases its dollar value even more. So now, regardless of what your opponent does, if you play 2 food cards, you'll get a bonus. And then if both you and your opponent try to fight over Daredevil, all of a sudden its value is skyrocketing. I'll talk about the cards in more specific details and how they work and what they do well when I do the card overviews. This was just more so a look down memory lane, seeing how the cards changed and evolved throughout the lifespan of Super Chef. And with that, that's all I have to say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys are looking forward to the future of Super Chef. See you guys next time. Bye.